What an extraordinary film. And there are so many layers to your untying the knot. And and it's incredible to be watching it right now at a time where we're thinking about these issues. And there's something so foundational about the presentation, because it's both very much about Bhutan and the notion of traditions. And at the same time, it's about the most universal ideas of being human beings. And I loved that idea that's early on about, is it innocence or ignorance? The questions that you pose so beautifully embedded are really quite phenomenal. And I thought I'd kick it off, and then I'll open it up to all of you. But first, to imagine telling this story with all the elements of traditional culture, of Buddhism, of what does it mean to be giving a gift, and of the idea of the stupa, and what is the foundation under it, and what can we do to alleviate some of the things that we feel have really threatened us. Could you talk a little bit about the impetus for creating the story?
As a filmmaker, I'm someone who's always inspired by true stories. So something I want to share with the audience is everything that you saw in this film is based on true events. Bhutan did have a mock election. The Yellow Party did win. And when we, build stupas, we do bury guns. But fortunately, we have quite strict gun laws. So usually when they build stupas, they bury toy guns. So that's why at the end, I had the little boy throw in his gun. But if you want to talk about the impetus of how I came up with these stories, in Bhutan, we have a very beautiful saying, and that says, one will never see your own eyelashes because they're so close to you. But for me, I had a very interesting upbringing. I grew up in India. I grew up in the Middle East. I grew up in Switzerland, and I studied political science in my undergraduate in the US. So having this multicultural upbringing, I was in a very unique position where I was able to see my own eyelashes, you could say. And a lot of elements in the story are those eyelashes. These are stories that for, I think, most Bhutanese, they would have just, they would have just passed by. But for me, having that outsider's look into what was happening in Bhutan, where a society, a community that was so traditional, so spiritual, yet striving to become a modern country, 1 foot in tradition, 1 foot firmly striving towards modernity. When you have that, it creates the most interesting backdrop. So for me, as a political science student, when I heard that the king was giving the gift of democracy and they had a mock election and the Yellow Party won, I was so fascinated by that. And this is a story I think regular Bhutanese would have been like, oh, okay,
It's particularly touching, I think, to think about those levels of, you kind of go along with the story and you see all the aggression between the different parties and things that hadn't been there before. And then the Lama sort of seeing the future and actually thinking, okay, there's an aggression here, and I'm going to recognize it in this way.
And interestingly, that part where the old lady comes and says, why are you teaching us to be rude? Even that was a true story. To make this film, I interviewed the election officer who actually went to the villages to teach people. And she told me, she was like, oh, when I went and told people, oh, this is how the candidates will debate, and this is how they will, present their ideas, and they will conflict with each other, and they did a mock debate. Like, the villagers actually told her, do we have to be this rude? What is this?
Yes, embedded in it is the idea that somehow modernity means you're going to be a deeper and happier and more sophisticated human being, and it puts into question all of those things.
Yes.
I really want to open this up to all of you, and we have microphones on the side. If you could just raise your hand, and I'm sure you have questions about the film, the challenges of making it, and maybe the greater meaning of it. So, just back there. So here's a microphone. Thank you.
That makes it easier. Thank you. You used a lot of very, very wide shots, which were stunning and very symmetrical, and I was just wondering, what was your intention behind that?
Well, first of all, my background, before I became a filmmaker, I was a photographer. So, you know, something I think you will notice with both this film and my previous Lunana, A Yak in the Classroom, I don't like to move the camera so much. I like to have it still. Wide shots, for me, it is because, you know, Bhutan is almost one of the main characters in this film. And I wanted people to really be immersed in Bhutan. So, you know, to really take in the beauty of Bhutan that I think we can't get anywhere else, to make the people experience that. I think the wide shots, you know, really are important for that.
And how people travel through them.
Yes.
You really get that sense of journey.
Yes, yes.
Yes, right here.
Thank you so much, Pawo. I really like to thank you because you are letting people know about Bhutan. Some people know about Bhutan, but others, they don't. So please let me tell you about somebody who didn't know about Bhutan. Mm-hmm. As you may know, your neighbor, mm-hmm. the communist China, mm-hmm. is occupying some region at the border. Mm-hmm. And discussing how the free world should support this aggression, even to a country as small as Bhutan. Mm-hmm. I notice, unfortunately, that maybe somebody knows about Ukraine, but others don't know about Bhutan. Mm-hmm. From your movie, it seems to me that you would like to suggest a kind of way to solve conflicts mm-hmm. that apparently, however, didn't work with your neighbor, Tibet, mm-hmm. and didn't work with Ukraine. It never works when a small country is attacked mm-hmm. by an authoritarian big countries. Mm-hmm. What is your message about that as a Bhutanese? What do you think?
What is
Bhutanese...
my message about China, you're saying?
Yes, a possible aggression. How could you cope with that?
Mm-hmm.
From your movie, I got the feeling that it will be a kind of acceptance, passive acceptance, but mm-hmm. I don't really think that all the Bhutanese agree.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, first of all, I think when you talk about aggression from China, you know, it's a very political issue. And as an artist, I can't really comment on political issues. You know, to be frank, there are many forms of aggression. Sometimes aggression comes from your best friends in very, like, you know, subtle forms, you know, such as political influence and all that. So there's many types. But for me as an artist, it was interesting because when I first made my first film and it became an Oscar nominee, I was there in the Dolby Theatre, and I was telling the Academy members that in this day and age, a country's independence and sovereignty is not defined just by, you know, government or policies. I said a country's sovereignty can also be defined by its presence in art and cultural spheres of life. And when I submitted Lunana, A Yak in the Classroom, the Academy did not even have Bhutan as an option. They did not even have our language as an option. So for me, you know, yes, I was happy and proud to be a nominee, but more than anything, I was very proud to be able to carve that space for Bhutan. for the world to know that Bhutan was an Oscar nominee. And when that is done, more people know of Bhutan as an independent, sovereign country. And when that is done, then I think aggressions from neighbors who might be bigger and more politically influential than you, then we have a firmer ground to stand on, you know.
Yes, I see a question there in the back.
I think more than any other movie I've seen in my entire life, I felt like I was watching reality. How did you achieve that?
Thank you. Making a film in Bhutan is quite challenging because we don't really have a film industry. My previous film, we made it on solar batteries because we shot in a location with no electricity. Thankfully, this one, we had electricity, but still, we were quite remote. Also, because there's no film industry, we don't have professional actors. So there are a lot of times where I write scenes, and then I'm left, wait, where am I going to find the actors to play out these scenes? So something that I do is I cast people whose lives mirror the characters I create. For example, the lama. The lama is the only lama of that village. And when I met him, he was building a stupa. And then when I asked him to play the lama in the movie, he was like, oh, I can't do that. And I was like, it's very simple. You just have to repeat whatever you say when you go and throw in your toy guns. It was just that. So when I do that, when I work with non-professional actors, I might not have the performance element, but then something I can rely on is the authenticity. And as a scriptwriter and as a director also, I change things a lot. Sometimes as I spend time with my actors, I might discover certain tendencies, certain, their own stories, and I try and implement that in the script. So that they're not really performing, but they're just, like telling their own story. So in a way, I take it as a compliment that sometimes people seem to think that both The Monk and the Gun and The Yak in the Classroom are documentaries. But yeah.
Great. Yes, this one here.
Hi, I'm wondering if you got a chance to show the movie in Bhutan and how people reacted to it.
Oh, yes. The film, it had already traveled around the world. It had been to Telluride, Toronto. It became Bhutan's submission to the Oscars. So when it went back to Bhutan, there was already a big build-up. And the thing with this film is that, when I made Yak in the Classroom, I intended that film to be emotional, kind of like nostalgic, sad film. But with this one, it was supposed to be a dramedy, But when the film premiered in Bhutan and, the lights came on and I went, a lot of people were crying. And I was really surprised by that. And as I spoke to people, it was because for them, this film kind of, it was like touching back with what Bhutan went through. And I think it made them reflect on all the change that had happened and made them realize that, in the pursuit of something we felt we needed, we ended up losing something we already had. And I think that's what touched them. And many people, even at that time, our present prime minister, our previous prime minister, who was democratically elected, he was there in the audience. And even he was very emotional, and he was telling me, oh, it really made me think. So, I was happy. I was happy that I didn't intend for that, but then for Bhutanese people to feel like that, I think it was very special.
It's so amazing when she gives back the eraser and says, you may need it more than me. I also felt very emotional when I heard that, because I thought, okay, we have to all rethink about what do we need, what kind of eraser do we need, how do we reflect. Let's take one more question. Oh, sorry, yes.
Yes. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The only Bhutanese I ever met, the only other Bhutanese I ever met was the representative of Bhutan to the United Nations. And that was the first time I heard about Bhutan after he told me what he is. Are there many or a larger amount of Bhutanese who are leaving the country, having your chance of being educated in different countries, and then doing something for the culture to be brought back to Bhutan?
Oh, you know, if you travel to Bhutan, you will find something, you know, very unique. And that is, no matter where you travel in Bhutan, even the remotest parts of Bhutan, like I'm talking about, like say, take for example, Lunana, where I made a yak in the classroom, which is supposed to be the world's most remote school. Even if you go there, if you meet school-going children, they will be fluent in English. And that was a decision that our king took, and that was, you know, we are a country of 600,000 people, and if we only spoke Bhutanese, we would be, you know, limited in what we can do. So he made this bold decision to make all schools medium of instruction in English and study the national language as a second language. So because of that, you know, a lot of Bhutanese are educated, are able to speak in English. But of course, as Bhutan has modernized, more and more people have gone out. So there are many like me. There are quite a few Bhutanese here who, you know, are exposed, who have been living here in New York, who are fluent in English. But to tell you a little bit about Bhutan, you know, we are a people that believes in something called interdependence. So before I get into interdependence, you know, whenever I tell people I'm from Bhutan, the next thing they always ask me is, you must be very happy. So we are known around the world as the happy country. And I'm sure many of you know that. Now, the interesting thing here is, you know, every year they have this global happiness index. You will not find Bhutan there, because those are dominated by materialistically rich countries, especially in the Scandinavian region, because Bhutan's happiness is defined, as I said, by this belief in interdependence. And if you want me to explain interdependence a little bit, in a you know, very, very like simple form, it's like if you look at a piece of paper, we Bhutanese will say that you must see a cloud floating over it. For without the cloud, there is no rain. Without the rain, there is no forest. Without the forest, there is no tree. Without the tree, there is no paper. So for every paper, there is a cloud floating over it. That's how our lives work. There are all kinds of clouds floating above us that have brought us together here. So the Bhutanese belief in happiness is only if the external cause and conditions are good, perfect, and happy, then the real happiness is achieved. So with this belief, we have many rules and laws in place in the country which might come out strange to people. For example, we believe that education and healthcare must be free for all people in order for them to be happy. So education and healthcare is free. That's why if you go around Bhutan, you will meet people who can speak English. Number two is we believe that you know, one of the articles in our constitution, our sutra, it says that the forest coverage of Bhutan can never drop below 60%. So right now we are at 72%, making us the only carbon negative country in the world. We are in the Himalayas, so we have Himalayan mountains everywhere. But we believe that our mountains cannot be climbed. So as the rest of the Himalayan region makes hundreds and thousands of dollars by people trying to summit the mountains and leaving a pile of garbage, we are now home to the last virgin mountain peaks, which means mountain peaks never been climbed by man. So we believe all this will lead to the real happiness that we humans seek. But as you said, it's true. As Bhutan has modernized, as Bhutan has been able to look beyond our mountains and see the James Bond and the MTVs and the AK-47s, we have been lured by that. So many Bhutanese we do have this problem of migration. And I think that is common with many developing countries where they mistake modernization as westernization. They think that to be modern, you must become Western, and when they strive for that, then Eastern values get lost. But I'm proud to say that even now, to this day, these forests are standing, mountains have been unclimbed, village children are educated, and tourism is still quality over quantity. So I'm happy, I'm proud to say that yes, we may be poor, but we still strive for that kind of happiness.
I think we all have a lot to learn, and particularly that idea of interdependence. So going back to untying the knot and the cloud, we're going to bring them together because I'd like to end with hearing where you're going now. What's coming up for you?
I discovered filmmaking quite late. I've had 2 incredible experiences with 2 knots untied. And now I'm here, when I made Yak in the Classroom and I was in the US, people said, oh, you should come to the US and make films here. But I thought, no, I don't think I would want to be here. I still want to make the films, that I want to make. But A Monk and the Gun was a wonderful experience because it brought me to people like Zhang Xing, like Bill Hoberg, Lisa Henson, who all helped me make this film. And I realized that maybe I can still be around here and, have the clouds to, manifest other stories. So, me and my family, we have made this big move, and we have moved to the US, and we hope to untie more knots.
Well, I know we're all looking forward to, it's almost like macrame, right? Lots of knots.
Yeah.
The weave and the tapestry that you're making is very rich, and I feel very moved also because this film is both very much about Bhutan and very much about the idea that traditional cultures are modern in ways that we don't always recognize, and that feels to me...
Well, I think, from my experiences with these 2 films, I feel that there is so many qualities that make us so similar to one another than dissimilar. And I think that's what art should do. That's what Untyings of Knots should do. They should bring people closer in the qualities that we share. So.
That says it all. Please join me in a big hand for Pawo, and thank you so much.